We know that behind each series there is a very large work team, and among all those people there are designers in charge of making the costumes for each team. We also know that sometimes the decisions are not made by the designer, but by the high-ranking bosses, and that's why sometimes it's not the costume designer's fault that things go wrong. Still, we must make a list mentioning the ugliest costumes that have appeared in the entire history of the franchise. Sometimes the entire team has the same costume, but there are some rangers who have a different costume than the rest of the team. At other times, the costume only looks ugly in certain specific colors, or perhaps because of some modification they made to it. It is worth mentioning that in this video we will only talk about the costumes and everything the ranger has on from the neck down. In this video, we will not talk about the helmets because, as we have mentioned in other videos, the helmet and the suit can be judged separately. I want to start with the Beast Morphers team, a team that almost didn't make this list, but unfortunately, I had to add them. The reason they almost didn't make the list is because I can give them credit for trying something totally different, but we have to be honest as they failed in the attempt. I know that maybe this decision can be very controversial since there are many who like the costumes of this team, but to me they just seem as if Spider-Man didn't have an official costume and put on the first coat he found along with his mom's belt. In this review, I only want to talk about the three main colors, as the Gold Ranger and Silver Ranger have slightly different and better costumes than the other Rangers. Another very horrible thing about these suits is what they wear on their shoulders. When you look at them from the front, they look like they have a backpack, and that makes them look like they are going to school. I think the worst thing of all is the texture of the fabric, as that is what makes them look like ordinary clothes. The other team with very ugly costumes are in space, and even though it is an iconic series, unfortunately their costumes were terrible. The design of those squares on the chest is something they tried to create to give it a future or space style, but they just look like part of an old video game. I know there are awesome designs that other modern artists have created with these suits, as they have managed to make those squares on the chest something more special, but unfortunately, we have to talk about the original suit. I know that because Power Rangers is linked to Sentai, there are many things about the costumes that should make them a bit generic, but sometimes they overdo it too much. The center of the belt has a design similar to letter mailing envelopes, and the supposed gold color doesn't match anything on the costume. I'm also not going to understand why they have that yellow part near the neck, as that doesn't help the costume design either, and we can tell this by looking at the Yellow Ranger costume. After In Space came Lost Galaxy, and maybe we thought the costumes were going to improve, but apparently, they kept the same people from the previous season. Apparently, these costume designers from the previous season hated Power Rangers and ended up making one of the ugliest costumes in the entire history of the franchise. The white part of the chest ends before it reaches the waist, and this just looks like they ran out of white fabric, and everyone agreed to leave the white fabric up to there. Then, we have this black line that goes from top to bottom, forming some triangles on the white parts. Honestly, whoever did this design was really bored that day and just started drawing some lines with his eyes closed. When the Lost Galaxy season finally ended, we were hoping that now the costumes were going to improve, and then came Lightspeed Rescue. Here the only good thing the costume designer did was to add the gold parts, the rest is a disaster. The design the Rangers have on the chest is the same design the circus tents have. The Red Ranger looks like the holster the popcorn comes in. I can understand that maybe the subject matter is a little difficult to bring to the design and transform it into something real, but to create this you need a group of collaborators, and it's hard to think that all these people agreed to send this mess. Lightspeed Rescue is over, and now there's no way they didn't fire the previous designer, and next season we're going to have some amazing costumes. Apparently, They hired the same team with bad taste and created these costumes for Time Force. These are super simple costumes, but simple doesn't always have to be bad. Unfortunately, on this one occasion, simple worked against them as the costumes looked terrible. The chest design is one of the worst designs I've seen, as it's just arrows pointing down. On top of that, they add some silver-colored parts on the boots and forearms. This suit is definitely unsalvageable, and although the idea of making the helmet visor the same color as the suit was very innovative, unfortunately, the suit ruined everything. After that season ended, we had several seasons with excellent costumes because apparently, they fired the team that was in charge of designing the costumes, but when we got to the Operation Overdrive season, they hired them again. This time the designers wanted to ruin everything and mark all their hatred towards the franchise. Being quite honest, the costumes are not super ugly, but the logo for this season is the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. For those who don't know, I'm a graphic designer by trade, and I've seen a lot of horrible logos in my professional life, but this season's logo was one of the worst I've ever seen. The design that the suits have was based only on dividing the color with a white part in the center of the body and under the arms. The rest is only the logo and the parts that complement the boots, gloves and shoulders, which are made of a silver color. The decision to put these parts in silver was a good one, but the lines made them look like old metal parts you find in a dumpster. For me, the worst thing about this season is not the regular Team Rangers. For me, the worst thing is the 6th Ranger, who has a few different things on his costume and raised the bar for how terrible a costume designer can be. Let's start with the color of the Ranger, which is supposed to be silver, and his suit looks like what people wear to work out and want to sweat a lot. He also looks like a chicken wrapped in aluminum foil about to go in the oven. In addition to this, they changed the white color that all the Rangers have and put it in black color, but with an orange line. To continue with the terrible decisions, they changed the design of the shoulders and make all that bigger and uglier. Finally, all those silver parts on the other Rangers can't be the same color as the Silver Ranger because they won't show, so they changed them to blue. So, this Ranger ends up with a color scheme of silver, blue, orange, black, white and red. The award for the ugliest costume in Power Rangers history goes to the Silver Ranger from Operation Overdrive. In this channel we have always stood out for always mentioning the positive in everything that happens in the Power Rangers franchise, but like everything in life, where there are good things, there are also bad things. It is impossible that in 30 years of history everything could be perfect, and although we can recognize the great effort made by the producers of the series, we must always admit when things are not good. This does not mean that everything we mention in this video is conclusive, since we all have different tastes, and I always say it in the videos. In this video we are going to mention which were the worst seasons of Power Rangers, but this does not mean that they are a total failure, they are just not the best. Leave in the comments which have been for you the worst seasons that you have seen of the Power Rangers. Let's start with Ninja Steel, one of the worst seasons in history with a terrible script despite having good actors. It should be noted that the theme of the ninjas had already been used and it was a very worn out idea, so it was lousy that they made the decision to adapt this theme. The problems that the Rangers have in each episode are the center of each story, and the solution to that problem is the one that must be incredible to make a spectacular episode. The problem this season had is that the solutions to these problems were very silly, and even though Power Rangers is not meant for adults, it was still a terrible script. On top of all this season had Victor and Monty, two of the worst characters in the entire franchise, although personally, for me, I still think Jayborg is worse. Leave in the comments if you want a list of the worst Power Rangers characters and tell me which one is the worst for you. The next season is Turbo, and even though this series has some good things, the bad things are too many and almost killed the franchise. Even Saban has said that Power Rangers in Space are the ones that saved the franchise, and In Space was released after the failure of Turbo. You obviously can't save something that isn't in danger, so, if the In Space series were the saviors of the franchise, it's because the previous series almost destroyed the franchise. We can start with the theme of the series, and that is that many do not understand that the theme of the season is one of the most important things in the series. It may not be the most important thing, but it's the beginning of everything, and if you start with the wrong step, then it's going to be harder to straighten the path later. Turbo had the theme of the cars, and the problem is that when fans watch a show, they don't want to see something that is already in the world, they want to see something out of this world, something that is not commonly seen. Maybe they were different cars with powers and that could be transformed, but they were still cars, and that's something you see every day in the streets. Another thing we can point out is that there were already Rangers that were in several seasons, and this causes you to get bored of the characters that you have seen for so many years. It doesn't matter if those characters were good, the important thing is that fans got tired of seeing them again. Let's talk now about Mystic Force. One of the worst issues in the history of Power Rangers, and Disney came to destroy the franchise with its magic. I want to highlight two things that I liked about this season. To me, the costumes seem to be the best, and the Rangers Solaris Knight, White Mystic, and Wolf Warrior are also characters that I liked. Unfortunately, these characters were thrown away as their costumes don't match the season, their powers don't match the season either, and having 3 special Rangers in one season is a waste. Everything else about this series was terrible, including the character development and the script. When a character gets to become a Ranger, they are always grateful and surprised, as being a Ranger has always been a mystery and an honor for anyone. However, we have a Pink Ranger who complained because she didn't like that pink was her color. We also have a Red Ranger who didn't believe in magic, rather silly since the theme of the season is magic. The next season is Megaforce, and here we can include Super Megaforce since they are the same characters and basically the same story. It's unfortunate that one of the best costumes in the whole franchise is wasted in one of the worst stories. I know there are many fans who don't like these costumes, but in my opinion, I do like them as they are different and have good color combinations and designs. The important thing is that this season could not develop their characters well, and many fans have been complaining that this story seems a copy of Mighty Morphin in certain things, like for example the Blue Ranger. Another thing they did wrong in this season is that they used many scenes from the Japanese series, and what the production said is that they did it this way to reduce costs. We all know that the beginning of the failure of any series or movie is when they want to reduce costs, because that causes the poor quality of the final product. Finally, we must say that they were talking about the legendary battle in many episodes, and in the end, it only lasted several minutes. This was a serious mistake. The only thing we can save from this season is the Yellow Ranger. All of these series are terrible, but the worst of all time is still Operation Overdrive. You can search all over the internet on all the lists of worst seasons, and Operation Overdrive is always going to show up on every list. Maybe the other seasons aren't on some list, but this season is always going to be there. This is no coincidence, and this season started out being terrible from its name, its logo, its costumes, and all the visuals. The saddest thing of all is that this is the second season on this list where they are celebrating an anniversary, as this season celebrated their 15th anniversary. This season has the worst thing that any entertainment production can have, and that is that it doesn't have exactly that, entertainment. Operation Overdrive is listed as the most boring season of all according to many fans, and it is the most mentioned in all the lists. I want to know what your opinion is, so write in the comments your list of the worst Power Rangers seasons and the worst characters. Yesterday we were talking about the best logos of the Power Rangers franchise, but in life we all make mistakes, and there are some logos that have not been so good. Some of these logos have problems with colors, textures, effects, theming, and lack of originality. This is not to throw hate to any of these seasons or to the creators of these logos, it is just a personal opinion of each person. Leave in the comments your list of the 10 worst Power Rangers logos. Let's start from the least bad to the worst of all. In the number 10 position we have the Megaforce logo, a logo that is not full of mistakes, but it is a very boring logo. We all know that the theme of this season is about pirates, but apparently when they made the logo, they never informed the creator about the theme of the series. This logo has nothing about pirates and has very basic colors. The season logo is nothing different from the franchise logo, and this is a problem as it just looks like a bunch of text put together. The only thing that represents the force in this logo is the explosion it has in the background of the name of the season, and the explosions are something we can see in every season of Power Rangers. Basically, this logo has nothing that makes it different and stands out among the other logos of the franchise. In the number 9 spot we have the Ninja Steel logo, a logo that suffers from the same flaws as the previous logo. The only difference between these two logos is that this season's logo was more complicated to create, since the ninja's weapons have that same metallic color of the letters. Despite this, they could have been a little more creative, as the letters they used are the most boring I've ever seen in a logo. The ninja star they used is the only thing that makes us feel the meaning of the theme of the series, since the background they used was just a space. The best description we can give of this logo is the word boring. In the number 8 position we have the Lost Galaxy logo, and I know that those who saw the previous video are going to be very confused, since this logo looks like the In Space logo. For those of you who haven't seen the previous video, I included the In Space logo in the list of the best logos, and this Lost Galaxy logo is very similar. The main reason why I included this Lost Galaxy logo in this list is because of the lack of uniqueness, since this season comes after In Space. They basically used the same elements to create this logo, but the worst part is that they didn't even do it the right way. The quality of lighting and lettering effects between the two logos is very different, as this Lost Galaxy logo doesn't look as good as the In Space logo. In the number 7 position we have the Zeo logo, and every time I see this logo, I feel like I'm looking at a piece of old metal. The worst thing about this logo is its colors, since none of these colors match and everything is very dark. Besides this, the theme of the series is not reflected in this logo, since the theme is Egyptian and they use a lot of gold. In this logo they could have used Egyptian textures, the color gold, and various colors such as Zeo crystals. This was really a good opportunity wasted, and this logo has been one of the saddest that we can see. When I see this logo, I feel like I'm going to watch a horror series, a dark series with a mystery theme. In the number 6 position we have the logo of Operation Overdrive, a series that I could never fully understand the theme. I have always mentioned that the designs of this series have been some of the worst in the entire history of the franchise, and the elements they use are boring. Every time I see designs of a compass or planet Earth, I feel like I'm watching a news program. This logo looks like a Discovery Channel adventure show where they go on off-road expeditions traveling through different parts of the wilderness. The lettering effect is quite well done, but the problem is that it doesn't make me feel like I'm going to watch Power Rangers, but rather like I'm going to watch some motocross competition running in the mud. In the number 5 spot we have the Turbo logo, with one of the themes that fans have liked the least in the entire history of Power Rangers. For those who don't know this series, the theme of this season is cars, and that's why the name is Turbo. I think the person who made this logo was only given 30 minutes to create it, and we can only see two things. The first thing that almost nobody notices is that behind the logo of the franchise there is a kind of grille similar to what the cars have on the front. This could also be mistaken for some kind of ferocious animal cage, like the protective fence used in dinosaur movies. The other element is the word turbo at a dynamic angle to represent some speed and movement. This logo is so simple that they could only use the color red, and this makes us feel that the whole series is only about the Red Ranger, the others are not important. In the number 4 spot we have the Ninja Storm logo, which seems to have been created solely with a decal in mind. If you look closely at the name of the series, you will notice that it looks like a decal due to the fact that it has 4 different colored borders around all the letters. Honestly, I really liked the theme of this season, but they made a terrible attempt trying to represent that in this logo. The background of the letters is a total mess, and this logo has way too many colors. None of these colors complement each other, and the style of the series name doesn't match the franchise logo either. It was also a mistake to have drawn the letter O as if it were a storm, and although I know they meant to represent the name, still, sometimes there are things that just don't look right. In the number 3 spot we have the Lightspeed Rescue logo, which is another attempt to recycle the In Space logo, but in the end they do a terrible job. I'm not a fan of the theme of this series either, but despite that, if the logo was well done, then I can recognize it. Unfortunately, in this case this didn't happen, since besides recycling the previous logo, they also did a terrible job in the creation of the letters of the name of the season. The color they gave it looks like copper, and this gives it a devalued effect. The style of the lettering doesn't help either, and, in the background, they only added a flash of light that, instead of improving, only makes the situation worse. Finally, the colors of this logo do not complement each other either, and it seems they never thought about it. In the number 2 spot we have the Time Force logo, something very unfortunate since it has been one of the best seasons and also has one of the best themes of the franchise. We can start with the style of the lettering, a very boring style, with no effects and basically the same color as the franchise's logo. Another thing is that even though they tried to give a 3D effect to those letters, it was still not very noticeable because of all the lightning bolts behind, and also because of the bad color selection. Normally, when you want to create a 3D effect, the back should be darker so that the effect is noticeable, but in this case, they used a yellow color, and the letters are almost white. In addition to this, they also added a green stroke under the letters, which does not match with everything else as it has a cartoon style. In the number 1 spot and the worst logo of all time we have the Alien Rangers logo. I don't mean to be rude with any of my expressions, but I honestly don't know what the creator of this logo was thinking. You must remember that this was the second logo of the franchise since after Mighty Morphin had 3 seasons, they released this short season of Alien Rangers cataloged as 3.5. I believe that here they were just doing a test to know what was going to be the next step in the franchise. The conclusion I've come to is that they looked for an alien to create this horrible logo. Leave in the comments your list of the 10 worst logos of the franchise, like this video and subscribe so this channel won't be as terrible as these Power Rangers logos.